Vayhi b'yamim hahem v'yigdal Moshe v'yitzei. And it was that Moses grew up and he went out el achiv, to his brothers, to his kin. V'yar b'sivlotam v'yar ish mitzri makah ish ivri me'achav. And he saw a Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew, one of his kinsmen. V'yifen kovacho v'yar ki ein ish v'yach et ha-mitzri. And he looked, Moses looked, kovacho, this way and that way, and he saw ein ish, there was no one else there. And he stepped and killed the Egyptian and buried him there in the sand. He looked, kovacho, he looked this way and that way, and saw, ein ish, there's no one else here. Now on first read, that looks like Moshe is being sneaky, right? This way, that way. Is anybody going to witness what I'm about to do? Can I get away with it? And that's a possible read of what's going on here. But the Hasidic tradition notes in particular just those few words, ki ein ish, that there was no other person, and says that it's in recognizing when there's no one else to step up to do the work, that means that it's your turn to do the work. Ki ein ish means there's nobody else, and so I need to be that ish, that person. On my short list of favorite lines from all of the 3,000 years of Jewish wisdom and thought is a line that comes from the Talmud, B'makom she'en anashim hishtadel lihyot ish. B'makom she'en anashim hishtadel lihyot ish. In a place where there are no human beings, strive to be human. In a place where there is no humanity, strive to bring humanity. When you see no one else is stepping up, step up. It's really one of the most beautiful calls to action our tradition gives us, telling us to look kovacho this way and that way and see what is the state of things, what needs to be done, and to not expect that there's going to be anybody else to do that work if we're not the ones to raise our hands. This week marks both the confluence of the 50th yahrzeit of Abraham Joshua Heschel, and of course we are in Martin Luther King Day weekend. Rabbi Heschel and Dr. King were good personal friends. The Kings spent every Seder with the Heschels. It must have been an extraordinary Pesach. And in fact, the Kings were due at the Heschels for Seder just a week after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Both of these men were figures of the 20th century, towering giants of the 20th century, who internalized to their deepest place, b'makom she'en anashim hishtadel lihyot ish, in a place where there is no humanity, strive to be a human being. In a place where there's no one else who's going to do it, you be the one to do it. Whether that was leading a civil rights movement which transformed a nation, or bringing into the contemporary Jewish conversation an emphasis on activism and social justice which did not exist in that form before Dr. Heschel. We have a way, in retrospect, of building up such characters, of seeing them as heroes in retrospect and assuming that those amongst their contemporaries saw them the same way. Of course, King has been well documented, was hounded by the FBI, was despised by huge portions of our country. It is only in retrospect that we have turned him into an American saint. And the time of his life, he was a profoundly controversial figure in an America not yet ready to hear his message that all people were siblings, that what counted not was the color of your skin, but the content of your character. Similarly, Heschel, we within the Jewish community who revere Heschel as a giant of the bringing together of authentic and deep Jewish spiritual wisdom and the call to action demanded by difficult times. Heschel was a leader in the civil rights movement, a leader in the anti-war movement, a leader in the labor movement. We imagine that Heschel must have been, in his day, a hero to many Jews. In fact, Heschel was the least popular professor at the Jewish Theological Seminary for many years running. If they had actually issued an award, they would have given it to Heschel. Because amongst his fellow faculty members, great scholars all, there was a deep belief that Judaism did not belong on the streets, it belonged in the synagogue. There was a belief that Jews were tenuous visitors in America, not yet fully at home, and to rock the boat by walking with King arm in arm, to rock the boat by standing up against war, to rock the boat by announcing that the prophetic call of social justice is just as active today as it's ever been, is to put American Jews at risk. Only in retrospect do we look back and say, what an extraordinary gift Dr. Heschel gave to the Jewish community of teaching us that our values may begin in the synagogue, but they don't end here. That if our Torah means anything, our Torah needs to be taken out into the world, that we pray with our words and with our hearts, but we also, as Heschel said, pray with our feet. In a time when there is no humanity, strive to be a human being. In a world in which no one else is going to do it for you, step up and do it yourself, even if that doesn't make you popular, even if no one else understands, maybe especially then. This Shabbat 1 year ago, a madman walked into the back of a synagogue and told the rabbi he was hungry and cold, and the rabbi went and poured him a cup of tea and then felt a gun in his back. And for 11 hours, a little congregation in Texas was hostage to a madman with a gun. And for that day, the whole Jewish community was right there with them. Remember it so vividly. In one hand, feels like yesterday, in the other hand, how was that possibly only a year ago? We were right there with them. After 11 hours of captivity, the Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker, saw a moment of opportunity, and he took it and did something he was not trained to do in rabbinical school, let me tell you. He chucked a chair, one of the many reasons I think we need movable seating in the sanctuary, in just the right moment, and got himself and the last 3 hostages out to safety. Surrounded, that building was by experts, by SWAT team. He recognized in that moment he had a chance to get home himself to his children and to help bring the people around him home to theirs. במקום שאין אנשים השתדל להיות איש. In a moment when there was nobody else who was able to do it, do it. Go for it. Take the risk. I want to say, though, just one more thing. The end of that story is clearly a story of Makom She'en Anashim. The heroism of standing up, of throwing the chair, of grabbing your people and going. I want to say also, and this is a longer talk, but there's also something in the beginning of the story, which is that there are fewer and fewer places in the world where somebody who is hungry, where somebody who is cold, where somebody who's alone can come and seek safety. We need to ensure that our synagogues are safe. We work very, very hard to do that. We need to continue to work very, very hard to do that. And we also live in a world very short on humanity. And so it can't be that the lesson of last year is that we close ourselves off. It can't be that the lesson of last year is that we no longer care for the hungry and the cold, both physically and spiritually. It has to be that somehow we continue in this inhuman world to be human beings. Because b'makom she'en anashim hishtadel lihyot ish, we are told. In a world in which there's no one else to do it, we still have an obligation to do it. We celebrate heroes this week, Heschel and King and Rabbi Charlie. And we celebrate the everyday heroism of those who show up, those who bring humanity where humanity is needed, those who bring light to the places of darkness, those who ennoble us by being fully and completely what we're called to be, which is human beings. Shabbat Shalom.